Hello ladies and gentle peeps, Game Chanel here, and today I want to talk about my Gunlance build. But before we do that, I want to take a second and thank everyone for all the views and all the likes and the subscriptions too. This is pretty crazy to me. I mean, we have close to 30,000 views and 250 likes on my videos, and we're really growing, which I love to see. This is pretty amazing to me, so keep the subscriptions coming, or else just kidding, obviously. No, we're not gonna do that, but anyway, yeah, just keep it coming. As I said in my previous video, I'll get a new headset shortly, so the volume shouldn't be an issue anymore. I read all you guys' comments and I know it's been coming up a lot. I apologize about the sound quality. I'm trying to raise the volume in post-production for the time being, and then in a week or two I should have a new headset, and then that issue should be resolved. But anyway, let's get into it. So to start off, I have to say that I'm using the Royal Burst, and I've tried to use the Earthshake the Magdalahat because I've seen many comments on Reddit and on YouTube and whatever website you want to name, and pretty much everyone says they're using this particular gun lens, or a lot of people at least do. And even in the game, when I'm playing with random groups, I see a lot of players using this gun lens. However, I just can't understand why. Maybe you can let me know in the comments why this is so good. But I mean, I get it. It has a high amount of blast damage. It has a long shelling type, which does a lot of damage, and it has shelling level 4. So I get all of that. And the base attack is pretty high too. However, you have green sharpness if you have no handicraft, and even with handicraft level 4 that I'm currently running, you barely get a little bit of blue sharpness. And that little bit of blue, I think it's one burst and it's already back down to green. And then you have to resharpen already. So I don't really see why this particular gun lens is so good. And I tried to make a build around it. I really did, but it's just I can't deal with it, because when I'm hitting monsters and due to the green sharpness, the gun lens is bouncing off and I can't get my combo through. I mean, that kind of screws me over, and it happened to me a lot. So that's why I don't like this particular one. And I started using the Royal Burst, which I also saw people use. And it makes a lot of sense to me because it has a normal shelling type, obviously not as powerful, but more shots thereof. And then we also have shelling level 4. We have poison instead of blast, and we also have actually affinity up, which I think is good, because with this particular build, you will see we actually get to 100% affinity, or 100% critical hit chance, which I know it doesn't affect the shots of the gun lens, but this particular build is not too focused on the shots. I mean, yes, we still use them obviously, but we are actually also interested in hitting the monster with the lance itself. But anyway, back to the sharpness. So I have handicraft level 4, and with that level, I actually get this this weapon from blue to white sharpness, and it, the base attack is not bad. And yeah, I mean, overall, I think this is the attack, the base attack when you hit a monster is much higher with this one, just because of the white sharpness. In case you didn't know, if you have a sharpness modifier, the way you calculate damage, you basically have to take the damage and multiply it with your sharpness modifier, and there's a little bit more about it, and there's actually a Reddit post from a person called Dorkish, and I will link the Reddit post in the description down below, because it's very, very detailed. It's a little lengthy, but it tells you exactly how you calculate your damage, and I'm not going to go too much into that in this video. If you want me to make a video about how to calculate damage and everything, then let me know in the comments down below. But just so you know, there is a damage difference between sharpness levels. So if you have green sharpness, like the other gun lens has, for the majority of the fight at least, you have a 1.05 multiplier. If you go to blue, you have a 1.2, and then if you go to white, you have a 1.32. So obviously you have a 15% difference between green and blue, and then another 12% difference between blue and white, and between green and white, that is a 27% difference. So so if I compare the damage between this gun lance and the other one, I mean, we do a lot more damage when we hit the monster, not when we shoot the monster, but when we hit the monster with this particular gun lens. So that's the reason why I'm using this one for this build. Okay, if you have a build that's really strong with the other gun lens, please post it down in the comments, because I really want to try it, and I like the other gun lens, but I just, for damage wise, I can't come anywhere close to what I'm doing with this particular build. Okay, anyway, moving on, we have the artillery charm. Obviously, artillery level 3 is a must have. It increases our power of each attack by 30% and reduces the wyvern fire cooldown by 50%. Must have. These are optional. I like the rocksteady mantle. Obviously, health boost is pretty neat too, but it comes down to your personal preference. For the rest of the gear, I'm actually going to go into the decoration so you can see it a little better. So the helm, the Nergigante Helm Beta, it gives us maximum might that comes from the helm, and it has 2 slots, so that gets us a health boost and attack boost, which is just something I slotted in there. Maximum might is really nice because while we have full stamina, we increase our affinity by 20%. That's quite a lot, actually. And with the gun lance, you don't really use stamina except when you try to, evade or something, like do a sidestep or try to move forward, backward, whatever. But you recover that pretty quickly, and all your attacks don't use stamina. So you basically have 20% increased affinity at all times. And I'll show you that in a second. Moving on, we have the Koshala Sister Beta. That gives us 2 levels of Handicraft, and then I have the Tenderizer Jewel, which gets us a Weakness Exploit level 1. Obviously, with the Kaiser Van Braces right here, we get to Weakness Exploit level 3 in total. So we're looking at 50% increased affinity when we hit weakness, weak spots of the monster. I also have the Attack Jewel in here. And then we have the Nergigante Coil that gives us attack boost level 2, and I slotted in speed sharpening because we have white sharpness. However, we get rid of the white sharpness really quickly, and then at that point, depending on what monster we fight, we already start bouncing off particular monster parts. So we want to be able to resharpen our gun lens very quickly and within the fight, so we don't really want to wait until the monster runs away before we can sharpen our weapon. So that's why I have in total 3 grinder jewels, so we only have 1 cycle of sharpening, and this way you can pull it off within a fight. If it's focusing your palico, if you run it alone or in a group, you basically wait until the monster focuses someone else and you have enough time to sharpen your weapon. Lastly, we have the Death Stench Heals, and that gets us another 2 levels of Handicraft, and as I said, 2 grinder decorations that gives us speed sharpening. Okay, so what I want to say overall, we are looking at the following skills here. We have the attack boost level 4, 2 levels coming from the equipment, and then 2 levels coming from the decorations. So that gets us plus 12 attack and plus 5% affinity. We have Handicraft level 4 so we get the white sharpness. We have Weakness Exploit level 3 for 50% increased affinity against weak spots. Artillery level 3, as I explained, very important. Speed sharpening. Then we have Health Boost. That's just for my survivability, because if I can't survive the fight, then obviously my damage doesn't really matter. And I'm still somewhat new to the gun lens, so I do a couple of mistakes here and there, and I don't want to faint because of my mistimed block or whatever it is. Plus, you can't really evade while you have your gun lens out, so sometimes you still get hit, or you might not be able to turn quick enough and put your shield up. So I just like to have a little bit more tankiness here, and then the maximum might for 20% increased affinity when our stamina is full. At this point, I also want to point out, if you haven't seen my DPS breakdown video, I would highly recommend you guys watch it. This way you can understand why I choose some of the survivability decorations over damage decorations, because I'm aware I could slot in something else to do a little bit more damage, but as I briefly mentioned, what good does this damage do for me if I actually can't finish the mission? So for the time being, I have slotted in health boost. I will eventually replace that with something else. Anyway, moving on. So looking at our affinity, basically our critical hit chance, as you can see on the right, we have currently 40% affinity, and 15% comes from the gun lens. That's just the base affinity that it has. 5% we get from our attack boost level 4, and then 20% extra affinity we get from maximum might, because we currently have full stamina. Obviously we're not doing anything, so we have 40%. And then now if we were to hit a weak spot of the monster, we actually were at 90%. And as I told you, and as I said in the title, this is a 100% crit build. It's just that I currently don't have the, what is it called, the stream stone, I guess, for the augmentation, but I can show you if we were to, come on, where is it? Oh, right here. If we were to augment it and put affinity increase in here, we would increase it from 15 to 25%. You see that? So in total we add 10%, and that's how we get to 100% critical hit chance. And then we actually have a second affinity slot, and we could put in damage. I guess that's probably the best one. Maybe a slot if you have another decoration that could raise your attack by a little bit more. You could go ahead and do that, actually. Totally up to you. I would probably go ahead and do attack. That's what I'm gonna do as soon as I have these warrior stream stones for the lance. I just, they're so rare. But anyway. So I quickly want to show you my damage numbers that I get from hitting this pole with this particular build. I think this way we can compare it with all of your builds. If you find yourself doing more damage with your build, please post down what kind of equipment you're using, what kind of gun lance you're using. I would be curious to know. As I said earlier, this is not really focused on the shelling damage, the shooting damage, as much as it is on the hitting, the physical attack damage. So keep that in mind. So let's do a normal triangle. White sharpness, 69 critical, 71 critical. So in between that, I don't know why the numbers sometimes change. I mean, I know it's usually 71 critical, but sometimes it goes down to 69. Maybe you can explain to me why that is not always a constant number, which I think it should be, but whatever. So next is the rising slash. That is 89 critical. Okay. So there's that. Let's do the two combos, the triple, like the triangle circle plus triangle, and then go here, 137, that's the critical hit. Again, we have 100% affinity technically when we have this build optimized, so it should be that number regardless. Let's do the triple triangle combo here, 137, followed by the sweep, 195. Okay, so the last one hits for 195. Now let's resharpen. Let's use the combination with the burst. So rising, triangle, circle, 29 damage per shell. We have 5 shells, so you can do the math there. That's again the reason why I don't use capacity boost, because I don't think it's worth the other 29 damage to lose out on the attack level 4 that I get from the Nergigante pants. So there's that. And then my personal favorite combination that I do when the monster is down in particular, but you can get it off if you have the Rocksteady Mantle. You can definitely get it off, but otherwise when the monster is down, I like to do the rising slash followed by a triangle, burst, go back into triangle to do the sweep, followed by a triangle to do this. That does an additional amount of damage, and then reload. Also, that whole combination eats through one cycle, or yeah, one entire cycle of your sharpness. So as you can see, we just resharpened. We're at white. Let's do this again. As you can see, that just eats through your sharpness like crazy. So you can resharpen. Again, it takes a second. I think it's worth it, especially if the monster is running away from you after that, and you have to like catch up with it anyway. You might as well resharpen. Now let's quickly look at Wyvern Fire. Now we do 78 times 3 with Wyvern Fire. I'm well aware that this isn't as high as it could be. I know some gun lances and some builds do a lot more damage with that, but again, we're not really focusing on the shelling and the damage of that too much. And it's still pretty significant, and we can still use it here and there when the monster is down or whatever it is. So yeah, so that is that. So if you're interested about the pants that I was talking about that give you capacity boost, and you want to try running those instead of the ones that I'm running, be my guest. They are called, oops, let me see. They're called the High Metal Coil Beta. Gives you a slot and then the capacity boost, right? But I mean, I can't do those style-wise. I mean, it's not as bad as some of the others, but I mean, what are those? You know, this is... No. No, I can't. I don't know. It looks like we're half sumo on the bottom and then a lady on the top. It makes no sense to me. And again, damage-wise, I don't think it's worth it because we're not shooting as much as we're hitting the monster. So definitely going back to those. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed this build video of the Gunlance. I really like this weapon. It's very satisfying to play. It has a great moveset. You have one of the strongest shields and you can block a lot of attacks with it. So your survivability is pretty high and your damage output is actually very good with this particular build and weapon. And I mean, how satisfying is it to shoot a monster in the face like we do here? Now tell me that wasn't satisfying to watch. I mean, nothing feels better than doing that. Anyway, I'm gonna end the video here. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing and stay tuned for more videos. And I also have a little bit of a gameplay against the Zorah Gunlance here that I'll touch at the end of the video. I know it's not a speed run by any means. I think it takes us 4 minutes or something, and I know it can be done a lot faster. I'm aware of that. But overall, I think 4 minutes is a decent time, especially considering that I'm somewhat of a newcomer to this weapon. And as you can see, I still do some mistakes while fighting the Rathalos. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and stay tuned for the next one.